Opinions and suggestions expressed on the following program are solely those of the participants and are not necessarily endorsed by KRMG, Cox Media Group Incorporated, or the program sponsors. This following program is sponsored by Causeway, LLC. Information in this broadcast is not intended as an investment, tax, or financial advice. Matthew Moore is not a licensed investment advisor and speaks solely from his experience and opinions. All information in this broadcast is for entertainment or educational purposes only. Matthew Moore, Causeway, LLC, and Cox Media Group Tulsa are not responsible for the success or failure of any person's investment decisions or purchases. Matthew Moore, Causeway, LLC, and Cox Media Group Tulsa makes no and expressly disclaims all representations, warranties, and guarantees with respect to this broadcast and its sponsors. Investing in any market is inherently risky and can be financially dangerous. Invest at your own risk. Gather knowledge in the world of cryptocurrency right now on 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's news and talk. Welcome to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. Matthew is locally based right here in Tulsa. Questions, comments, concerns? Call 918-460-5764 or send us an open mic using the KRMG app. Now, here's Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore.
Good afternoon. As we do every Sunday at 5 on KRMG, we get to the cutting edge of finance with Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. Bob Cooper filling in for Russell Mills, who is now on the, he's on the 13th at Southern Hills, by the way. About 3 shots off the pace. We'll let you know how he does. In the meantime, don't believe that. In the meantime, here is the guy who's the head honcho, the baron of the blockchain, Matthew J. Moore, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, thank you so much, Bob. It's always great to be introduced by a legend. And yes, we are in studio, and we are going to unpack a wonderful show today. And so if you are maybe crypto curious, maybe you're a misfit day trader or the hobby investor, and most certainly maybe even a Bitcoin hater, well, we welcome all of you guys because we want to have a wonderful conversation. We want to educate, keep people safe. But before we dive into today's show, I do want to say happy Bitcoin Pizza Day. Well, you might be thinking, what in the world is that, Matt? Well, it is a historical moment in Bitcoin's history, which is when the first transaction was made in Bitcoin. A gentleman bought 2 large pizzas for roughly 10,000 Bitcoins many years ago. That now would actually be worth $300 million roughly. So hope those pizzas were delicious, man. Well, this is one of America's only radio shows dedicated to Bitcoin and the digital ecosystem itself. Grab an orange pill and join us down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin. It just might change your future. And yes, unfortunately, Russell is still out this week, but no worries, Russell. We got this. Yes. You know why? Because we've got to keep the most cutting edge show on KRMG going, and we are most certainly doing that. And if you are wondering, yes, Bitcoin is here to stay, and so are we. Despite any market conditions, our commitment does not waver, and we are in it to win it. Patience and knowledge is key, and that is why we bring you this show every Sunday. We want you to have the same conviction that we have. And in other words, in the Giga Chad himself, this was stated by Michael Saylor, the Bitcoin price is currently set by those with more money and less knowledge than you. And in time, though, they will get the knowledge and you will get the money. Very soon, my friends, the tables will turn, and the one person sitting by my side filling in for our host, Eric Cooper, well, he kind of believes this too. He's our friend and sponsor, Scott McElroy. Scott, are you ready to chit-chat about that BTC?
Absolutely, Matt. Thanks for having me.
I love it, man. Well, markets are down, and yes, traditional stocks are in bear market territories. Inflation is still at a 40-year high, and the economy is falling fast into a recession. Centrally planned economies from the top down, in my opinion, never work, and same goes for centrally planned monetary systems. The decisions of an elite few are, again, distorting market signals, and the central bank will do everything it can to maintain the illusion of control. Things are looking rough, and the capitulation in the cryptocurrency space will most likely continue as the masses misunderstand Bitcoin and respond to the posturing of the central bank. Unfortunately, this pain is real for many, many people, so please hang on.
Yeah, it is, Matt. However, will the cryptocurrency space share the same fate as the internet? You know, in December 5th of 2000, the Daily Mail newspaper published an article with this headline: "Internet may just be a passing fad as millions give up on it." I guess we all know how that one turned out, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think it's probably safe to say that Bitcoin is following a similar bumpy road as the internet took. But how will this journey of adoption look for those people who are just now starting their life and careers? Well, luckily today, we get to find that out.
100. We're going to vibe it today. And, here's the question. What does Bitcoin mean for Gen Z and the millennials? Is Bitcoin going to be our ticket out of the wealth gap that's been artificially created by the central bank and the United States government? Well, we'll discuss this and more with our two special guests, and you don't want to miss it. But before we kick things off, this segment is important to be known. It is made possible by a company called Hedge. And my question to you is, do you have a strategy to obtain cryptocurrency on a regular basis? I mean, especially when it's on sale. Do you plan to automate your dollar cost averaging? What about get all or part of your paycheck in cryptocurrency? Hedge is revolutionizing how you get paid. Hedge makes it easy to automatically convert your pay into crypto, whether you're an employer or employee. You can get started in 4 easy steps. Yes, that's right, 4 easy steps. Start getting paid in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Litecoin. It's really up to you. Crypto is a long-term play, and start a strategy today. Hedge is here to make it easy to stack those sats month after month. What are you waiting for? Start living on the Hedge. And please go check them out at gethedge.io. Again, that is gethedge.io. And if you want to do me a favor and tell them that I sent you, you can go to my website, mattjmoore.com, and just on the homepage, scroll down, you'll see a button that says Get Hedge. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Well, Scott, what do we got today?
Well, today on the show, we've got Nyc and Griff from the podcast known as the Nyc and Griff Show. And Nyc, and that's spelled Nyc, and in his own words, it's fancy, is based here in Tulsa, but I believe Griff is joining us from California on the phone. And so our first question is here. Guys, welcome to one of America's only radio shows dedicated to Bitcoin. And please say hello and introduce yourself.
Yo, yo, yo. Thank you guys for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Griff, you on the line there?
Thanks for having me on.
Well, we're doing a lot better now that you're on the line with us. But hey, can you guys just real quick, give us a few deets on yourselves?
Man, few deets on us. We're really good friends. We met playing college football. We both played I think Griff played 5 years. Is that right? Did you play 5 years of college football, Griff?
Man, I can't even count that many years. Yeah, probably something like that.
Yeah, so we met
enough.
playing college football, and man, we're really good friends. And this guy jammed an orange pill down my throat, and here we are.
Griff, do you want to add anything to that?
No, yeah. So me and Nyc met. He was actually at my second school. I transferred into Albany. I think it was Nyc's second school. We basically ended up being roommates, kind of backup quarterbacks together, scout team guys together through various injuries and whatnot in our 5th year of school. So we kind of just bonded over that when we met at University at Albany. And once we graduated from there, we kind of got reconnected through Bitcoin. So yeah, kind of as Nyc said, here we are.
They're being humble. They're actually kind of a big deal. So, but I always welcome all sorts of wonderful guests, and today's going to be a great conversation. And here's my question for you guys. I obviously, have been in Bitcoin for a while. You guys have jumped in it. You're really excited. Can you each give us your reason why the drop in the markets is actually getting you excited instead of fearful? Because some people get fearful when they see the price of Bitcoin go down. And, obviously we all have our convictions. So what's your conviction and why are you excited about the space still?
Absolutely. I think first it's important to understand that a lot of retail investors right now are investing in Bitcoin as if it's some type of speculative asset, right? They treat it very similar to the stock market. So it seems to make sense to me that it's currently trading exactly like the stock market is, right? It dumps when the stock market dumps, and it pumps when the stock market pumps. But I think I can probably speak for both Griff and I and say that we're both really excited whenever the market goes down. Griff, may you add in why we might be excited about that?
Well, yeah, because me and Nyc are not exactly guys who got into Bitcoin in 2008, 9, or anything like that. We got into Bitcoin in the last couple of years, so price has been at what, Nyc? When you first got in, it was probably at 60,000.
I think it was right at 57.
Yeah, a dip in the price, and we can actually accumulate more with the same amount of fiat dollars. We're pretty excited about it because one Bitcoin is always going to remain one Bitcoin, which is kind of how we started every show on our podcast.
That's right. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin.
Yeah, hey guys, so what do you believe the best advice right now in surviving a bear market?
I think my thought on this is probably 2 parts here. So first part, generally you probably shouldn't be investing in stocks or Bitcoin or really anything else with money that you need to live your life, right? If you're investing more than you can handle, that's probably not a great move financially. But more importantly, part B would be continue to buy. The more you can buy, you can lower your average cost basis, meaning that the average price that you buy at reduces, which is a great piece of that, right? Dollar cost averaging.
What about you, Griff? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in a bear market, I don't think it's really hard to be right? But when it comes to Bitcoin, it's really more of a savings account in the long term. You have to really monitor your time preference and just make sure you're investing things that you see for the long term, not necessarily the short term. And if you believe in things in the long term, then really you're just buying things at a discount during these kind of times. So you should really kind of be excited into a bear market. Just depends, I guess, right, whether you're able to prepare for it or not, if you have any dry powder left or not, sometimes is the question. But weather the storm and just keep believing in what you believe in.
I love it. Well, guys, I love getting your input on this, and I look forward to carrying on the conversation. When we come back, we're going to ask Nyc and Griff what it's been like building a career in life in the 2020s and how Bitcoin fits into the picture for them. You don't want to miss it.
Moments away, more cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore, Scott, Nyc, and Griff right here on 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk. Welcome back to Cryptocurrency on KRMG. Bob Cooper in for Russell Mills on the definitive cutting-edge radio show on the air in Tulsa, for that matter, in most cities across the nation and the world. Here is your host of Cryptocurrency, Matthew J. Moore.
Hello, Tulsa. Hello, world. And welcome back to one of America's only radio shows dedicated to cryptocurrency. Yes, we talk about money. Yes, we talk about technology, but this is not professional financial advice. We're just giving you our opinions and thoughts. And yes, we are excited. And you might think we're a little weird, but we're here to share that weirdness and hopefully rub off on you a little bit. Thank you for tuning in. And in fact, every week on Sundays, we bring wonderful guests in to have conversations about the future of Bitcoin. What does that mean? What does it look like? How do we build a life with Bitcoin? And to help me unpack this journey and this conversation, yes, my co-host is out today, but filling in for him is Scott McElroy. He is a good friend and sponsor of the show. Scott, thanks for filling in for the legendary Cooper.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here.
Actually, I think we got two legendary Coopers. We got Bob Cooper and Eric Cooper, all part of the show. All right. Well, guys, we're going to introduce our guests today. We've got Nyc and Griff from the Nyc and Griff Show. It's a podcast. You can find it on all major podcast platforms. Yes, they are Bitcoin fanatics, kind of like me as well. But I think it's going to be really, really good. So,
Yo. Thank you for having us on.
Yeah. Griff, you there?
Yeah,
you on the line with
us?
us?
For having us on. Oh, I'm here.
Fantastic. And go ahead, Scott. Remind people where they can find our show.
Yeah, and hey, everyone, if you miss an episode of this radio show, you can always find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and, of course, krmg.com. So if you miss an episode, we've got you covered.
That's right. And Nyc and Griff, you guys are on the same platforms, right?
We are, yeah. We're on all the major platforms as well as YouTube. We do have video on our podcast as well.
Awesome. Well, last segment, we teased this idea of being a millennial and a Gen Zer and how Bitcoin might be our ticket out of the wealth gap. So, Nyc and Griff, I want to start here. Why do you think Bitcoin is the answer for so many young people? Why are they turning to Bitcoin? I mean, it's pretty much a sure thing that Social Security will not be available for us. And the opportunity to own assets just kind of seems to get harder and harder. Can you guys give us a reason why you see Bitcoin as hope for these two generations?
I think part of this is simple as, younger generations, younger people are more comfortable and familiar with technology, right? And they're more familiar with the digital world, and just so happens to be that Bitcoin is the native money of the internet, of the digital world. But, maybe a little bit on a deeper level, I think the younger people are feeling more than ever that the current money that we use is so manipulated and fake. And I think it's getting to a point where the people at the top, whatever you want to call them, I don't know. Maybe we don't want to put tinfoil hats on today, but I don't know. That
the Illuminati.
I think they might be having some issues hiding what they're doing. What do you think, Griff?
Yeah, no, I mean, and to go on, piggyback off of that, we've lived in pretty much a time that it's been highly inflationary with an average inflation rate since 1971 of about 3.5%. And what is it now? Like 8.3%.
Yeah.
I think young people are just tired and have quite a mistrust for the Federal Reserve and central authorities guarding our money supply. And we see how, if you look at history and you look at the last 50 years, that just simply cannot be trusted. So Bitcoin is that permissionless, open source entity that can actually fix a lot of problems for us. So I think Bitcoin is hope for young people in a sense, because we're living in a world that's been highly inflationary, and it's kind of hard to look for some bright spots at times, but Bitcoin is that.
Yeah, it's basically verify. You can verify something. Don't just trust it, verify.
Hey, can you guys tell us how you stumbled upon Bitcoin and why it clicked with you? And as Paul Harvey used to say, give us the rest of the story.
I gotta let Griff go first here, because he's the guy that orange pilled me.
Yeah, no. So when me and Nick were at Albany, we got done playing, and then that spring of 2020, we both DoorDash and had a pretty high time preference at those days. We would DoorDash and then we would just go get something to eat. And both of our girlfriends at that time were pretty far away from us, so we were pretty much dating at the time. But around the same time I was DoorDashing, we were both economics majors, and I would do well in school, but a lot of the traditional finance stuff never made a lot of sense to me. And I took a class with kind of one of the head professors there, and all he would do is curve grades. And then finally in my last economics class, it was taught by a fifth-year PhD student. He was curving grades too. And so I was like, man, so what does anybody know about economics here? And then I stumbled upon a Robert Breedlove Twitter thread about hard money and soft money, and read a little bit about Bitcoin. And I had a friend who bought some, and I bought some, and kind of never stopped learning from there. And then I wouldn't stop bugging Nick about it up until the point we started a podcast. But I don't know, Nick, what was it like hearing me talk to you about it for so long? God. I was obviously super invested into it.
For sure, yeah. So whenever I graduated, I worked in the legacy financial system for 16 months, and it was everything that you can think of, equities, insurances, cash flow management, retirement planning, estate planning, taxes, the whole thing. And Griff that whole time's in my ear talking about Bitcoin. And it just did not make sense with what I thought was reality. It wasn't until I got all the way down to the end of my stint there and am now in commercial construction here in Tulsa with Ascend Commercial Builders that I was like, let me look into this. And I started looking into it, and I thought, man, this kind of makes sense. Maybe what I thought was reality is not really reality. And, here we are 8 months later. I think, Griff and I were talking on the phone for hours and hours, and I was like, dude, I can't believe this is real, So here we are now, as some would call us, Bitcoin maximalists. We are the maxis here.
Well, I think Scott's got another question. We got a couple more minutes left before we got to go to break here.
Yeah. So why did you guys start a podcast? And probably the bigger question is, do you think education is kind of the biggest challenge in the Bitcoin space, crypto space in general?
Yeah, so I guess kind of following up with that last piece, Griff orange pilled me hard, real hard. I dove in, and like I said, we started talking on the phone for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours every other day. And at that point, I'm just trying to catch up to what he had learned up to that point. So I'm like, man, I didn't know this. And he's like, oh yeah, keep going, go look at this. He's kind of pointing me in the right direction. And, thankfully I never went down the crypto road. I went straight Bitcoin from the jump, which was really nice. But yeah, so we started talking on the phone. We eventually got to the point where it's like, we got to share this with the world. And, as far as education, man, I think that is a huge missing piece in the puzzle. I don't think I've ever met anybody that's done the research, that's looked into it and gone down the rabbit hole, that is not still to this day consistently buying Bitcoin every single chance they can get.
What about you, Griff?
Yeah, absolutely. We really just wanted to, honestly, the one goal we had is we didn't know how many listeners we'd have. So we both got orange pilled by kind of smaller podcasts or smaller outlets. So we just, if we could get one more person into it, it's worth it. And I think the biggest challenge is it's such a paradigm shift. We live in a world where money continually gets worse over time, and convincing people that doesn't have to always be the thing with money. It doesn't have to inflate over time and lose purchasing power. Money can actually be better than what it is today. And that's just a hard thing to get people's minds around sometimes.
Yeah, I know. I think education is definitely part of the process, and there's a lot of misunderstandings and misclassifications in the space. And then I think we were having a chat before we went live, which was a lot of people will just make these blanket assumptions without doing any research. But then once they start doing their own research, they really start to kind of see the light on where things are going just technologically. But I want you to stick around. We're going to be back with some more conversation here. But if you got questions about Bitcoin, how to navigate this space, you can go to my website, mattjmoore.com. I even have a resource page where you can learn how to buy. So, thank you.
We will be back. More cryptocurrency in just a moment here on KRMG. Stand by for a news and weather break. And at 6 o'clock, the Evening Edge with Todd Holst on 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk. (102.3 KRMG). Tulsa's News and Talk, welcoming you back to cryptocurrency. Bob Cooper here for Russell Mills, whom we expect back fully on board next Sunday at 5 o'clock. Earlier today, you've heard words like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and maybe words you don't know much about. Another term we're going to hear in just a couple of minutes that I need some explanation on is fiat money. That's part of it also. And here to get us through the jungle, the orange-filled jungle, if you will, the host of our show, Matthew J. Moore.
That's right. Some would call me the host with the most, but I'm handing out those orange pills, getting people into Bitcoin, understanding where this rabbit hole goes. And yes, fiat money is part of that picture, part of the conversation. And if you were asking or wondering, what is fiat money? Well, fiat money is just simply something that is designated money by decree of the government. It's usually a use of force in order to make sure that people use it or utilize it as money. So basically, fiat is just by decree, whereas the origins of hard and sound money usually comes from the grassroots, from the free market, where people decide, well, this is a good form of money, we're going to roll with it and use it as a store of value. So that's a whole nother conversation, but just in case you were wondering. But to help me with this conversation today, my co-host is out, but I've got my friend, my sponsor, my buddy, Scott McElroy. Scott, thanks for being here, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and we'll just have to tell Eric I did a great job.
You do? You're doing a great job, yeah.
So if you've missed the last couple of segments, we've been chatting with Nyc and Griff from the podcast known as, well, it's their name, the Nyc and Griff Show. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Thank you guys for having us.
So I want to ask you a little bit about your, sorry, I didn't leave room there for Griff. You there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. No worries.
Awesome. So I want to just ask you real quick about your perspective. So you guys are in your 20s. How has Bitcoin changed your time preference? And can you explain that concept a little bit?
Man, time preference. This is one of my favorite topics here recently. I think it's got a huge impact here. So I guess in short, time preference is the degree to which you prefer the present versus the future. Now, time preference is always going to be positive, right? Because we have to consume in order to live today, right? Saving would be a good example. You know, if we saved 100% of everything that we made, it would probably be difficult to buy groceries and, where you live. You know, you got to consume today. So the time preference is always going to be positive in some sense. But the higher the time preference is, the more you value today. And the lower the time preference, on the opposite hand, means that you value the future more. So time preference has a massive effect on decision making. The more that you prefer, let's think about a short-term decision. If you make short-term decisions all day, every day, it's probably not going to lead to the best long-term outcome, right? Ergo, the more that we're able to lower our time preference and think more about the future, it allows us to create better futures, right? But Bitcoin, for us, I know for myself, it's allowed me to lower my time preference, which further allows me to think about and plan for my future, as well as, and more importantly, my future family's future. That's been my personal thought. Griff, what do you think?
No, I think Nyc hit on a lot of key things there with the time preference. And in your 20s, I mean, we've lived in a world where everything is now. And I think most of that is because we're dealing with a very soft form of fiat money that, people are not really accustomed to. It's not backed by anything, and that really can poison your decision-making in the short term. And so in your 20s, to have something like Bitcoin and know that it's always going to be worth the same amount from now until, really the end of time. One Bitcoin, like we keep saying, is always going to be one Bitcoin. And that just helps you save and plan for the future if you know that your money isn't actually going to get printed right underneath your feet.
Yeah, earlier I hinted at the, that current fiat money paradigm to store its free markets and price signals. And I even made a post on social media hinting on this. In fact, my post stated this, which was fiat money is dependent on perpetual debt and spending to keep things going, while at the same time, the very money that you use and save in loses value. Fiat money is easy money and punishes those who plan for the future and rewards short-term thinking. Fiat is not wisdom, in my opinion. It's foolish and is an economic toxin for economic foundations. It incentivizes societal rot and moral corruption, and it steals from the masses and rewards an elite few who have been given a monopoly to create it. Can you guys speak to the false reality, Nyc and Griff, that the unconstitutional Federal Reserve note has basically created in our society today?
Dude, I got to say, this question is a doozy. I mean, we could go 12 hours just on this topic, right? But my thought here is, since 1971, we officially go off the gold standard. Now, we know it was a broken gold standard before then, but over the last 51 years since then, reality has been significantly altered. Because it's happened over 51 years, it's tough to really perceive in real time, right? It's been one little piece at a time. Except for in times of high inflation like we're seeing today, right? We're very aware of what's going on today. But, time preference, to go back to the time preference piece, has been heightened little by little, leading people to think more about today and not about tomorrow, which, as we can imagine, it leads to not the best long-term outcomes. But then this also affects, I think, personal responsibility, right? I think that this is a huge piece when you talk about the self-sovereignty of Bitcoin. But then, I believe as people are forced to raise their time preference because of inflation that they don't have control over, the future becomes more and more dystopian, which is obviously not what anybody wants, I don't think. But fiat is ultimately leading... Here's my statement here. Fiat is ultimately leading to the destruction of either A, itself, or B, human civilization as we know it.
Okay, that's good. Griff, what about you, man?
Nick, that was a big statement, but it is largely true. If you just look at all the things that have changed since 1971, not just that housing prices are going up and up and up and up, but looking at what those housing prices going up is causing a destruction of the nuclear family. It's really hard to have a single income family anymore in America. And with that comes kind of a destruction of the middle class. And I don't think it takes too many historians to know that when you start destroying the middle class, the strength of your country is also going out the window. And in America today, it's really hard to be middle class. And most of that just comes from the money that we're using, which is fiat, very easy to print. And it doesn't always help everybody.
Hey, Matt. I'm going to take this thing over here for just a second. What is your thought on that? I mean, we're living in an altered reality. I mean, 1971 happens, and that automatically and inherently puts us on a different path. I mean, I wonder what kind of innovations we could have seen since 1971 had we stayed on, the gold standard at that time was somewhat broken, right? We know it was. But what kind of innovations could we have missed out on since then?
Well, again, it goes back to price signals and incentives, and I think you talked about time preference. Obviously, when your time preference is altered, I mean, I think we've seen destruction in these abstract ideas like food and soil and malinvestment, and incentivized for people to pursue life in a totally different manner. We punish savers and reward spending, and we reward debt. So it really is kind of a societal rot, but that is a brainstorming question, and shoot, we could create a whole episode on that.
Absolutely.
In fact, I think it's important to notice where the trends are going, and paying attention where, yes, we might sound like a bunch of, weird guys thinking outside of the box, but even some of the mainstream guys and some of the prominent Wall Street investors are kind of starting to see where the trends are going. And over the last few years, we've seen Paul Tudor Jones, a prominent Wall Street hedge fund manager, invest into Bitcoin, and recently he made some interesting comments on CNBC's Squawk Box, which is a show, about the space at large. And I want to play this clip to get your guys' thoughts on this. Now, it's not a maxi take on the space, but it is easy. It's easily applies to Bitcoin first and foremost. So, Bob, if you could go ahead and play that clip for us, that would be fantastic.
Here's what I see. I see generational divide. and it's a digital divide. And unfortunately, Joe, you and I are probably on the other side of it, though I think we're both scrambling as fast as we can to understand it. And I see it all the time in our quant groups. I see it all the time in my kids' friends. If you look at the smartest and brightest minds that are coming out of colleges today, so many of them are going into crypto. So many of them are going into the Internet 3.0. It's hard not to want to be long crypto because of the intellectual capital, just the sheer amount of intellectual capital that's going into that space.
So what do you guys think about that comment? I mean, they often say that there are two rules when it comes to investing: follow the money and follow the talent. And I definitely see that happening in Bitcoin in the space. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, just my take here, a lot of things get real confused when people say crypto and Bitcoin, and there is a lot of talent all over the place, not just in Bitcoin, but in crypto. But just to speak on some of the talent in Bitcoin, there's guys like Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, who's creating things with Square and Cash App where you can do all kinds of different payments and send money all over the place almost instantaneously. And it's about decentralizing the real world, whereas some of these crypto projects and a lot of this talent, they're really taking it as in a business sense and creating these companies with these tokens that I don't know what you think, Nick, but it's a little bit different than Bitcoin. It's a little bit outside of my comfort zone. I'm not really too sure where all of the talent in crypto is going, but with Bitcoin, it seems like it's headed in the right direction with Strike and things like Square and good companies like that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there, Griff, and I do agree with Paul Tudor Jones. I think I got to refer back to what I was talking about earlier with younger generations being so comfortable with technology, right? It seems like younger generations are going to adopt new technologies to attack the flaws of our life today, right? And I think that we're obviously seeing huge issues with money right now. But they're going to adopt new technologies that tackle the flaws of the current system as economic times change.
Right. Well, guys, we've got limited time here, but I'm going to go ahead and remind you, if you're listening to this show and you want to learn more, you can go to my website, mattjmoore.com. I've got a bunch of resources. In fact, I've even got a book, Foundations for Liberty, where the second half of that book talks about the structural flaws of the current monetary system and why this kind of relates to Bitcoin. Really, it's fascinating stuff, and I would just encourage you to learn and educate, because the more you learn about this space, the more you're going to be able to make better decisions. And if you're like, hey, man, I'm sold, I wanted to get a Bitcoin, there's a resource page on my website. And if you want somebody to hold your hand and you want to set up a consultation, I would be more than happy to meet with you in person and show you and teach you how to do this safely, because there are a lot of bumps and pit holes along the way. So you definitely want to be safe. So when we come back, we're going to have more conversations with Nyc and Griff from the Nyc and Griff Show.
And stay tuned for that final segment of Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore just a couple minutes away, right here on 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk. Cryptocurrency continues on 102.3 KRMG. Bob Cooper in for Russell Mills in the final few minutes of our program today. But remember, krmg.com is one place you can hear the rest of this show if you tuned in late, or any past or future episodes of Cryptocurrency. For now, back to our host, Matthew J. Moore.
Thank you, Bob. We are here back in the saddle, and we are going to close out the show with a great segment with some great guests. And to help me do that is my friend and sponsor and fill-in co-host today, Scott McElroy. Scott, you ready to do another one?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it, the confidence, man. Well, guess what? This show is made possible by our sponsors, and one of our sponsors is your business, Bow Up Car Wash. Again, like I said, we love doing this show, and it's because of people like Scott that we can do this. And if you haven't noticed already, spring is in the air, and in Oklahoma, that means tornadoes and nasty pollen all over the place. Ugh. There's nothing we can do about tornadoes, but we can definitely help you with that yellow pollen-tinted car that becomes so prevalent this time of the year. No, that's not a new paint job. That's pollen. That's why this segment segment is brought to you by Bubble Up Car Wash in Broken Arrow off 470 East Kenosha Street. They are Broken Arrow's newest locally owned car wash with all the bells and whistles. And to make your car clean, shiny, and dry, they most certainly will do that. Come take advantage of their free vacuums, air wands, and towels. They have unlimited wash plans starting at $19.99 a month, and you can add family members for $15 a month per vehicle. So what are you waiting for? Go cheer up at Bubble Up, and who knows, you might catch a glimpse of their family dog, Bentley, the Bubble Up pup. You can check them out at www.mybubbleplup.com. Well, do I get to keep my job, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. You're great.
Okay,
You're hired.
Good. Well, today we've had a wonderful chat with Nyc and Griff from the Nyc and Griff Show. It's a podcast dedicated to Bitcoin. They're on all the major podcast platforms. I want to welcome both of them back into the studio. You guys still there?
Absolutely here. Griff, you there?
Still here. How you doing, Matt?
Awesome.
I got to give a shout out to a couple of people that I love dearly. My beautiful fiance here is in the studio with us, Janae.
Making the place look better, right?
Making it look great in here. And I got to give a shout out to my dad. He is listening. What's up, Dad? I'm happy you're listening. And to my mom. I know she's listening as well. I love you guys.
Yeah, I might as well give a shout out to my mother as well. It's actually her birthday today, so happy birthday, Mom, if you're listening. Love you tons. But guys, here, this is the question we need to start this segment with. Can you share with everyone where they can find more of your content? Maybe they've enjoyed what you had to say today and they want to follow your show.
Absolutely. We are on all the major platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and we also have video on Spotify and on YouTube. And Griff, why don't you shoot these guys to our Twitter?
Yeah, you can reach us at Nyc and Griff Show. It's pretty easy the way Nick spells his name, and I guess it's because it's super fancy. Is that right, Nick?
Yeah. It's at NYC and spelled out AND, and Griff is GRIFF show, at Nyc and Griff Show on Twitter.
Awesome.
So as we wrap this up, what do you guys plan to achieve in the Bitcoin space? Do you have any hopes of making a full-time career out of this? Why not? Just kind of talk to that.
Yeah, I think kind of going back to this earlier, we're really looking to be a part of the space. We are a part of the space, and we're looking to bring people into the space. We're looking to help people learn as we're learning. But personally, I'm looking to broaden my own perspective so that I can have a more well-rounded view of what I believe reality is. And I would for sure go for a full-time position, if the opportunity presented itself and it made sense at the time. But at the moment, man, this is really just a passion project. I love hanging out with my boy Griff. We hop on in the mornings and we drink some coffee and we get to talk about what we believe is best for the world.
Yeah, I have to second that. I don't know if I would ever go full-time in the Bitcoin space because I really believe strongly that this is about bringing Bitcoin to the real world and making the real world more, I guess, Bitcoin-friendly space, as it were. So kind of looking to bring Bitcoin to the real world. And like Nick said, just continue to educate on those Saturday mornings and keep catching up with each other.
I love that, Griff.
That's good. Well, and this is kind of a deeper question, but obviously there's these two parallel monetary systems. One is kind of decreasing, while one is increasing and growing in adoption. We know that the internet or that Bitcoin has a faster adoption rate than what we saw with the internet. But in your opinion, how do we know that Bitcoin has won the monetary war?
I think there's a pretty well-defined path for it, right? That's like it's a collectible first, then a store of value, then a medium of exchange, and then a unit of account, right? That's kind of like the defined path. But I think for the regular people, right, all of us that are here on the show, listening to the show, I think Bitcoin's won that monetary war when people can just save with absolute certainty that, this is going to be buying power that's there later that I can use for my future family or to buy a home, or maybe I just want to save because I don't need to consume today.
Griff, real quick.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with Nick. I kind of think just when you look at the crypto space, it's really just Bitcoin, and I don't know how many more trials and tribulations it needs to go through, bans, ESG FUD, whatever it may be. Bitcoin's kind of already stood quite a few many attacks, and there's only going to be 21 million, so kind of think that helps it win.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. It was great to have you on the show. I look forward to following your content and having you back on in the future. Again, one more time, where can they find you?
All the major platforms, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, and YouTube. Come hit us on Twitter at Nyc and Griff Show.
Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, guests. Thank you for listening to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. Bob Cooper, an honor to fill in for Russell Mills, who shall return next Sunday at 5, right here on 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk.